did with Carrie Brown, and we're going to talk about kind of a serious subject today. Miss Brown!
First time, didn't screw it up this time.
Yes! We're so smooth, we got a queen wave to that, like...
I made a complete pig's ear. I did a Facebook Live with Dr. Carrie last week and made a complete mess of it. Well, the start. And most people didn't see it, but I was so embarrassed. I felt like a complete idiot. So, yay me!
Oh, I'll tell you a secret that'll make you feel better. So, my very first live I ever did with Dr. Ken was in December, and he messaged me 10 minutes before time, and he said, "Kay, I'm ready, girl." And I was standing in my bathroom having a panic attack wrapped in a towel. I was like, no!
I'm just looking over here at my computer because you said that it would pop up on your page, but I'm not seeing it.
Okay, I'm going to show you where to find it so that everybody knows, too, where we can find this to share as soon as we're live. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you guys how we search it. So, we're going to go to Colorful Keto with Dory. That's my page. It's just opening up there. It's got the pretty coffee on the top of it. There we go. So, you go to that page, scroll down just a little.
I'm not on that page at all. I'm somewhere else.
I'm somewhere else. So from there, you guys scroll down and see how it shows we're live right there now. All you got to do is share that one. So as soon as you share it, those people will be watching us live. So right now, I'm sharing it to my group so that the people in my group can watch it live with us. And it's that easy. I know it doesn't sound easy, but it is. Sharing all the social medias, I think it's got to be the most confusing thing for me. I mean, hands up if you guys didn't know how to do any of that, because I never did before.
I just wish that everything would work on all the devices. So the reason Dr. Barry and I struggled last week was because I was using my Mac, and it was the first time I'd done a Facebook Live with someone else who was remote. So I'm like, but you can't do it on a Mac. You can do it on a phone, but you can't do it on a Mac. And so I'm trying to do it on the Mac, and I'm like, I don't understand how this is supposed to work, but it turns out you can't.
You can't.
So it was just like, really? Why can't we just do it from every device? Why is this so hard?
From everywhere. Yes. Okay, so this is what we could do. What's the name of your kitchen group that you want to share it to?
Okay, I got it now. I'm there now. I'm sharing it.
Because everyone needs to see this. We're going to talk about some really, really good stuff today. So while you're sharing, I'm going to kind of let people in and on a little bit of a secret. Because it must be a secret, because there's so much debate. Psst. You can affect your mental health with your diet. Shocking. It's still apparently up for debate. Not just in the keto community, but as a whole. That we can change our mental health with food. So I think it's got to be a secret, Carrie.
Hold on one second. I'm just trying to share here. Hang on a minute.
You do. It's all good. But that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Because we got a lot of really great information at KetoCon. And I think there are a lot of people who it was brand new information for. So to them, it's, it's kind of secret hocus pocus stuff. And I think it's time that we start talking about it regular mainstream. Because what we put in our bodies definitely affects everything about our body.
It does, and we need to start, and that my focus, yes, I'm thrilled if the type 2 diabetics get off their insulin and people stop getting migraines and, and all these other amazing things happen. And people lose weight. That's all awesome, and I love that. But my little heart flutters the hardest when it's helping people to resolve or at least improve their mental health issues, because nobody's talking about mental health, and everybody should be talking about mental health. And I know, that's just my view of the world. But there's so many people that are suffering with mental health issues in all its various guises. And there's so many people, if they're not suffering themselves, they know people who are. And then there's a whole nother bunch of people who are suffering in silence, and because it's still such a sick stigma, nobody even knows they're suffering. So we have to get the word out. We have to talk about mental health. We have to get rid of the stigma. We have to make it an okay thing, because I truly believe that for the most part, mental health issues are issues similar, not in nature, but similar to all the other diseases that are out there that you're born with. So, where there's this huge stigma. So in my case, I have bipolar 2, but the problem was buried in my genetics. So I was born with this brain that was not able to function properly. There shouldn't be any more stigma around that than around people that are type 1 diabetics, that are just, that have some defect, for want of a better word. We shouldn't be treating mental health disease any differently than anything else. And we are. And there's a massive stigma around mental health issues, and we have to make that go away, because there's millions of people who are suffering extraordinarily and suffering in silence because they can't talk about it, because if they do talk about it, they're shunned, or they're called crazy, or they're put into, or they're drugged to make them more normal, or, all of the other things that we know that people are doing to deal with mental health. And there's too many people dying. There's too many people dying because they're taking their own lives, because they're just exhausted from the struggle. And there's too many people dying at the hands of other people who have mental health issues who have gone untreated.
Yes. And you know what? It's not as uncommon as everybody thinks. I can raise my hand and say that I have been officially diagnosed with depression in my 20s. So it's not just the people that you wouldn't think. People would never imagine that I've ever dealt with depression. But since I was 3 years old, that was my lifelong battle with depression and with suicidal thoughts, with, all of those things. And nobody ever talked about it because, it made you weak, or it made you broken somehow. You didn't want to talk about it with the guys that you date because it made you damaged. And you didn't want to talk with your friends about it because, maybe they would look at you differently. And I think the only way we stop that is to say, stop it. We can sit all day long and talk about our period and nobody blushes. But somebody says, I suffer with depression or anxiety or bipolar, and everybody's like,
Or, as Sherry has just noted, it's the just get over it, or,
snap out of it.
Just stop it, or just go work in a soup kitchen. That'll make you feel better. It's like, wait, what? Oh, okay. I wish it worked like that. And if we're talking about, people who are being sad or have a mini depression, those kind of things do help. They really do. If you focus on someone else and not yourself and all that. But we're not talking about being sad or having just a little depression. We're talking about clinical depression and mental health issues like bipolar disorder and ADHD and anxiety and PTSD and, all of those kind of things. You can't fix those by talking about it.
No.
You can't talk your way out of those things any more than you can talk your way out of a broken leg or diabetes. And we have to get that message across somehow. And it has to become okay to talk about mental health issues. We have to turn the conversation around to, oh, you have bipolar? Let's see if we can get to the root of why you had bipolar so that we can stop it, right?
Yes.
That should be the conversation. How can I help you? Not, it's incurable, you just have to learn how to live with it, or snap out of it, or, whatever. We have to change the conversation conversation.
Was that your official diagnosis too? Because that was my official diagnosis. It's not curable, so just learn how to deal with it. That was my official.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about what we can do instead of just dealing with it. What's the first step? What do we need to know about what we eat and how that affects our mental health?
Well, I think we're one of the most important points, one of the most important starting points from my perspective. Well, the thing that really blew everything open for me was when I got my DNA done.
Okay.
But even before that, I think more and more people are becoming aware that sugar is terrible for our bodies, but it's also terrible for our brains. Sugar actually works similarly to like some of the drugs. It actually fires regions of your brain that cause it to become addictive and cause you to have a happy rush. And so getting rid of that is in and of itself going to help stop some of the crazy.
Yes.
So from my perspective, getting rid of sugars in all the million forms that the food manufacturers have developed now to try and trick us into eating their products, the sugar's got to go.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's one of the hardest things because it does act like a chemical on our brains. And I think that for those of us who already have a genetic disposition to mental health issues, or, because in my case, my DNA is a bit wonky, and so that's how I developed. That's why I developed bipolar 2 disorder, which I've now resolved. I've been completely symptom-free for 2.5 years, and I've been completely unmedicated for 2.5 years. But sugar still, I think people with mental health issues are probably more susceptible to the chaos that sugar causes in our brains. So it's one of the hardest things to get off of, but it's super, super important that we do get off of the sugar and the carbs. Gluten, actually, the carbs, because carbs literally, once you eat them, they become sugars. So
yes.
It's kind of the same thing. Gluten is another issue. When I ran my DNA, I found that I was genetically intolerant to gluten.
Okay.
And although I don't have celiac disease, but my naturopath explained to me that the mainstream medical will tell you that if you're allergic to gluten, you're a celiac. That's the only way that it can manifest itself. My naturopath taught me that there are 7 different ways that gluten can affect you, not just show up in the form of celiac. So I have a genetic gluten sensitivity, but I'm not celiac. But I absolutely believe that all my life when I was eating gluten, not realizing that was a bad thing for me, that the gluten was actually attacking my brain as well. So I think 2 big things you can do: get rid of the sugar, get rid of the carbs, and make sure that all the gluten is gone.
Okay.
Those are the 3 big things that I think it's super important to do for anyone, but particularly people who have mental health issues.
I have a question for you then, Carrie, when you say gluten-free. Because you know what? I go to the grocery store and I see a lot of these mixes that say gluten-free or gluten-free bread, but I look at the ingredients on them and I go, whoa, I don't know if I should be eating that. So are those products okay, or do we need to be double-checking kind of what's going into them as well?
So, and I'm going to be a bit hardcore. If you don't know, the answer's no.
Okay.
Right? That's the easy way to deal with everything. If you're not sure, if you don't know, the answer's no until you can get it verified somewhere else.
Okay.
Most, from what I've seen, most of the gluten-free products that are available are high in carbs somewhere else. They're just using other things. They're just using pea protein, or they're using a grain that does not have gluten in it.
Yes.
So I think for people with mental health issues, I think we need to be more careful.
Yes.
Because we're messing with their brains. We need to be more careful. So I would just avoid all of that.
Okay.
I really would. But gluten, it became clear to me when I found out that I was genetically intolerant of gluten, it became clear to me that, you know, if I ever did a carb up, or if I ever did a cheat day, which are not things I subscribe to, but if I did, I absolutely could not, under any circumstances, do it with anything that had gluten in.
Okay, so
gluten is a huge no-no. And I actually think it is for a lot of people. And if you read books like Wheat Belly and particularly Grain Brain,
yes,
the arguments in those books, the science in those books are so compelling for why nobody should eat gluten. Well, just as an example of the sugar addiction and how it can affect the brain, and if this may be a bit distressing for people, so if you are suicidal, you may want to just, if you struggle with that, a lot of people are triggered by stories of other people being suicidal, so just be careful.
Okay.
And have somebody that you love on speed dial, just in case, not to be dramatic, but, you know, being triggered by someone else's suicide story is a thing. So take care of yourself first. You can always come back and look at this later. When I was still taking lamotrigine, before I had done the work to figure out what in the world was wrong with me, I accidentally ran out of, I was on lamotrigine, which is an anti-seizure medication, but that's what was keeping me out of suicide. That was what was keeping me stable, and I was not suicidal at that point. And I don't even know how it got to be that I ran out, because I'm really, really careful, as most people are that have a mental health issue. You know, we'll do anything, but we will never forget our medication because it's so dangerous for us if we don't.
Yes.
So, but one weekend I noticed that I didn't have enough to get me to Monday, and not only that, but I had no refills left. So I couldn't just call the pharmacy and get a refill. I was actually going to have to go see the doctor. And it's Saturday, and I can't get an appointment. And so I'm like, and I really don't know how that happened, because I'm very careful about that kind of thing. But I think I had 2 tablets left, so I broke them in half, or I went down to half a dose just to kind of eke it out to get me to Monday, when I was hoping that I'd be able to get in to see my doctor, or at least put a call in so that he could get me a refill on the prescription. Yeah. So that was Saturday morning, and by Monday lunchtime I was suicidal, and that was just going down to a half a dose.
Yes.
I was suicidal. And a friend of mine, I was working at Microsoft at the time, but I was actually working from home that day. He worked at the Gates Foundation, and he messaged, so we were kind of we were in sister roles in different companies, and he IM'd me about something, and he just knew from my response that things were not going well, and he video IM'd me and said, what's going on? And I was suicidal. And so he told his manager, hey, you know, I'm having a personal emergency. And he got in his car and he drove to my house, by which time I was curled up in a ball on my bed, just like ready to end it all. I was just a mess. And he went to the store. And remember, this was before I was keto. He went to the store and he bought a tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Cherry Garcia. And he brought it home, and I'm curled up on the bed. I'm not even talking to him. I'm like as done as I can be while I'm still breathing. And he fed me that ice cream, and 15 minutes later I was just like this. I was like yay, and I was all, everything was lovely in my world. That was the sugar. So, and the reason I share that is to prove, like, sugar is, and yes, if you can amuse it in an emergency like that, that's one thing, but that's how powerful sugar is to your brain. And that's why I say, if you're looking for, you know, how do I start to figure out and to help my mental health disorder, get rid of the sugar.
Okay. And I love
and then get rid of the carbs and get rid of the gluten.
And I love that you mentioned Grain Brain, because we're actually giving away a copy of that with today's live, donated by Robin of Keto for Life, because it is such an important message. And I want to say, it's not always a lot of sugar that sets you off. I've noticed if I have things that maybe have a little sweetener that I shouldn't have, or, you know, it's got a little bit of, you know, this or that I shouldn't have, that the next day I want to put all the things in my face. Like, all of a sudden, I'm craving all the carbs, I'm craving all the sugars, I'm craving all of the junk. So now that I don't have it, I can notice. Like, say, for example, if I had a pepperoni that had something in it that shouldn't, by the next day, I'm like, uh-oh, I want to put all the things in my face today. So, we have to... Oh, go ahead. Oh, no, you're frozen. Oh no, we're frozen. Miss Carrie is frozen. Hang on, let's see. It looks like she's trying to reconnect. Oh no. Okay, we'll give it a second to reconnect, and then maybe we'll try to pop her out and pop her right back in. Let's try that and see. Let's pop her out, and then we're going to see if we can pop her right back in. Let's see. There we go. Let's add her again and see, because we were glitchy. It's starting to get hot in my house. I should have turned the air conditioning on before I started. Is it? Yay, you're back!
Yay! I'm back. I have to say, lovely people, I can see that you're typing things, but because I'm on a cell phone, it's so
I can't see.
I can't really read what you're saying, or you are, so I'm sorry about that. Oh, there's Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Oh, Wendy, lovely Wendy. We do a live together today, too, where we talk more about mental health issues, so I'm excited, because it's time that we started talking about those kinds of things. So let's circle back to that, and let's say, what kinds of mental health issues can we look at improving with diet?
My personal experiences with bipolar 2,
okay,
and depression, but I don't see any reason why the ketogenic diet would not have a positive impact on everything that is to do with your brain.
I agree.
And I realise that's a bold statement, and I'm not a doctor, but from what I've read, I can't see any reason why any brain wouldn't benefit from a higher level of fat and a zero level of sugar.
Agreed. 1,000,000% agreed. And if somebody's hassling you and saying, oh, how could you feed your kids like that? You're so mean. Then maybe we need to talk about what we have been feeding our kids, because you know what? It's not just our health either. And our next generation is growing up with more health issues, more mental health issues, more anxiety, more depression, more, teenage suicide. So maybe it's time we start talking about that too.
So I have a theory, and please listen when I tell you this is just a theory. This is just Carrie's opinion. I think the reason why I don't think there's any more people with these genetic mutations than there ever were.
Okay.
I think what's happening is because they think that a third of the population have the same mutation as me, which is the MTHFR mutation, which is causing, it is implicated in so many diseases and symptoms that we have. why is everything more? Why are more people having mental health issues? Why is everything getting more? And my theory on this, my opinion, is that no more people have the genetic mutation. What's happening is that the genes are being expressed a lot more often, so therefore we're getting the symptoms. And I personally believe that that's because of the chemicals that are floating around in our environment that are damaging us. The food that we're eating is damaging us. It's all of that kind of thing. It's the chemicals surrounding us in our cleaning products, in our food, all of that is triggering the genes to express themselves. So when you have a gene, and you may have the MTHFR mutation, but it might not express itself. It's like a light switch. It's there, but it might not have switched on. So you may have it and not have any symptoms.
Okay.
I think what's happening is that all the chemical crap that we're surrounding ourselves and eating and putting in our bodies is causing, the hormonal dysregulation and all of that kind of thing is causing chemical imbalances and hormone imbalances in our bodies, which are throwing the switches of our genes on. So that's why we're seeing more and more symptoms and more people with disease. So it's not. Does that make sense? That's my theory anyway.
Do you know what? I agree. That does make sense to me. I think that it's always been there underlying, but it triggers depending on, our environment, what we're around, what we consume, what we bring into our body, mind, and soul, because it's all about whole health when it comes all full circle all the way around,
So another thing about people with MTHFR mutation, we have a very reduced ability to detoxify. Oh. So for us particularly, it was far more likely that if I was, if all of these chemicals and food and fumes and all this modern day chemicals and estrogen releasing plastics and all of this stuff is causing havoc in our bodies, and people with MTHFR can't detox it. So this stuff just builds up in our bodies. It's of no surprise to me that eventually that my genetic switch flipped, and then all of these symptoms of bipolar just came out full force, but they were kind of detonated by the chemical crap that we're surrounded by that I cannot get rid of.
Oh.
And again, they think that there's a third of the population have the MTHFR mutation. And not to scare people, there's probably a lot of people, 99% of people don't even know they have it. But, and they might go, well, I have no symptoms. But if you have it and you have no symptoms now, that doesn't mean that it's not suddenly going to express itself. You can help prevent that happening by reducing your exposure to chemicals, by eating super clean diet, by getting rid of the sugar, by stop doing the things dietarily or in your environment that are causing your hormones and everything else to be out of whack. You are more than likely helping to prevent that gene from ever expressing itself in the symptoms that MTHFR has been linked to.
Awesome. So let's...
If that makes sense. So even if you don't have any symptoms, that could change if you continue to eat junk and, store food in plastic and use noxious chemicals in your home and all those kind of things. I believe that you are increasing your risk of switching your mutant genes on, because that's not the environment that we were intended to live in.
I agree. 1,000,000%. So let's wrap up, Carrie, with where we can find you, because there are a lot of people who need the information you're putting out, and they have friends and family they need to share it with. So where can we find your information so we can share it with our friends and family?
So I have a YouTube channel which is relatively new, but I'm building that with there'll be information and videos going up there all the time. For people that don't know who I am a chef, so chef by trade, which is kind of ironic because now I can't actually use anything that I was trained in. But, so I do write cookbooks all for keto. So I have 5 keto cookbooks out now. They're all on Amazon, and also a 28-day quick start guide, which has all the theory about keto plus meal plans and recipes and all the things. So they're all available on Amazon if you just type in Carrie Brown. Yay. I blog in 2 places. I blog at carriebrown.com. Okay. But most of my new recipe stuff is up on the KetoEvangelistKitchen.com website. I have a podcast with the awesome Brian Williamson called Keto Evangelist Kitchen. So if you like podcasts, go there. I have my YouTube channel, which is The Real Carrie Brown.
Awesome.
I have my IG, which is The Real Carrie Brown. And we have a very large keto food and recipe Facebook group called the Keto Evangelist Kitchen. And that focuses specifically on recipe sharing and new recipes, and me and my amazing admin team troubleshooting when you have trouble with recipes you find online, which a lot of them don't work, so they come to the kitchen and try and help troubleshoot, how it won't work. So that's all about food. We don't talk about success stories and I have gout, was that caused by keto? There's none of that. It's just all about the food. So we have the Keto Evangelist Kitchen Facebook group. We would love to see what you're cooking and have you join us over there. Yes. So if you hook up with any of those things, you'll find links to all the other things, because of course there's so much social media now that it's just impossible to list everything. But Amazon for the cookbooks, or if you go to the KetoEvangelistKitchen.com, there's a thing there that says cookbooks. Click on that, because we have them in hardback on Amazon, but we also have them as a digital download, because it makes it much, much cheaper for people. Awesome. And I'm not about making money. I'm doing this to help people. Yes. But of course, I do have to cover the costs of production. So the digital are much, much cheaper. Keto.com for those. YouTube channel that I'm going to start posting cooking videos up there. Okay. But also keto information. Our podcasts are also available on YouTube. For those of you who prefer that form rather than iTunes or podcast app.
Yay! Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Carrie, and thank you for the message that you spread, because every day, all day long, we need to talk about these things, and we appreciate you getting together with us and sharing what needs to be shared.
And I just want to encourage you, I want to encourage you all to be brave. Yes. But I also want to make sure that you are actually in a safe place when you start being brave, because there's a lot of people for whom it's actually not safe to reveal their mental health issues. Yes. So if you can, be brave and start talking about it. If you can't, if you can message us and we can see how we can start to help you out of that, I would love to do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Carrie. I'm going to pop you out and I'm going to explain to everybody how they're going to get to win their copy of Grain Brain today.
All right. And I'd love to throw in one of my cookbooks into that giveaway, or you can do a separate one, or two winners, more winners, I don't know.
Let's throw it in.
I have 5 cookbooks. There's the Keto Crock Pot, the Keto Soup Bowl, the Keto Ice Cream Soup, Keto for the holidays, and 101 keto beverages. So they can have, whoever wins, they can have their choice of cookbook.
Oh, yay. Okay, so let's do this. What's your favorite number between 1 and 30?
29.
Okay, so number 29 on Instagram that comments hashtag I love Carrie Brown wins their choice of her cookbook.
All right.
27. So I love you, darling. We will see you soon. Thank you again so much. And for your generous donation of book. We love you.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.